Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. We are the show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. Tonight, have a really fun show. These guys are award winners, the 2023 American Whiskey Brand Innovator of the Year, the 2023 Best Kentucky Finished Bourbon of the Year, and we've got them here. They're going to tell you all about the stuff they do at Broken Barrel Whiskey. So very, very interesting process, and really looking forward to talking with these guys. But before we do that, we want to tell you about the Bar Cart Co-op. Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends who produce content for the whiskey enthusiast in you. We have Distillers Talk with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. They'll talk with distillers from across the country and around the world about anything and everything in terms of the distillation of what found its way into your bottle. Alan also has two other shows. One is called One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute, where he'll answer all of your questions about whatever he does. If you don't understand something about fermentation, ask Alan. You don't understand something about grain choices, ask Alan, and he'll give you his answers. He also has a show called If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. And yes, they talk about ghosts. They talk about all kinds of things, supernatural, paranormal. It's a very fascinating show. And then My Whiskey Den with Pat and Mike and Mitch every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, live. My Whiskey Den is where craft whiskey is king. And last but certainly not least is the newest member of the Bar Cart Co-op, David Levine, and Whiskey in My Wedding Ring. David does a great job as a writer. He has a wonderful blog. He also has a podcast where he'll interview distillers and talk about the whiskey that they're making. And he has some great review notes, really good stuff. You'll enjoy that. And then, of course, our show, Bourbon Turntable. If you're watching us right now on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We would appreciate it. If you're listening to the show on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, or Google, you can subscribe there as well. You can follow us on our Facebook page where we post all of our shows, and on our Facebook group where we'll post what we're drinking and what we're listening to while we're drinking it. So join us in all that fun. But right now, I want to welcome to Bourbon Turntable Seth Benhaim and Nick Roady. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello. Gonna be a long one.
Seth's got some hoarseness going on tonight.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Well, we all do that from time to time. Either hopefully it was something fun, like you went to a concert and screamed your lungs out. And no,
just sick.
Not enough high proof whiskey in Seth's diet. So we're going to be talking about Broken Barrel whiskey and how this came about. And before we do that, we want to get to know Seth and Nick. And while we're doing that, we're going to be drinking some Broken Barrel small batch bourbon. All right. So we're going to start sipping on that. And while we're doing that, Seth, your role at Broken Barrel is what?
I am the founder of the company, and I started the business. It was actually a vodka company originally. I started the whole thing in 2012. From there, we did vodka for 5 years, got into whiskey in 2017. I was the CEO for that entire time until about a year ago. In 2023, I became the chief creative officer, and we brought in a new CEO right around the time of having my second daughter. So that helped out a lot.
Good.
Nick, what do you do?
I drink whiskey with Seth, and it's incredible. It's been an amazing ride. I handle the majority of our marketing outreach.
Mm-hmm.
We're a small company, Kevin. So like a lot of small companies, everybody does everything. Seth's not only creating new products all the time, he's selling, he's doing marketing. I think the same for a lot of us. So I mostly do marketing, but we all do it all.
Yeah. And how long, Nick, have you been with the company?
Too long.
I'd have to count. But
7 years.
Okay. So you came on board around the time or just before it switched from vodka to whiskey. Is that kind of a fair time?
Well before.
Oh, okay.
Well before.
Okay.
We were just a vodka company when Seth called me.
Yeah. Okay. And Seth, your company is based in Los Angeles, correct?
Yeah, I'm here in LA. We've got our home office, so accounting, operations, it's all here. And then we've got, a few hundred square feet of barrels that we do mess around with, and we do some limited edition stuff out of LA. But the bulk of manufacturing is in Kentucky.
Yeah. So are you a LA guy, born and raised, or are you transplanted to California?
Not born and raised. No, I was actually born in San Francisco.
Okay.
Went to college in Arizona, came back here and travel quite extensively. So we've been all over the world. I've been all over the country. We get out there. We are very rarely here, to say the least.
Yeah. And Nick, how about yourself? Are you from California also?
No, I spent some time in California, but I was born and raised in the Midwest, in the St. Louis metropolitan area.
Okay.
Spent some time when I was young. My family had a horse farm, so kind of had a little bit of that life. And I've lived in Los Angeles for a little while, and I'm downtown St. Louis right now. So very all over the place as well.
Great. Well, I'm actually going to St. Louis this weekend, so.
Well, come see me. We'll have a drink.
All right. Well, we can do that.
Good idea.
Invitation to meet up and have a drink is never a bad thing.
Downstairs, there's the Broken Barrel Bar, and you'll be happy with it.
Okay. You don't have to twist my arm. So let's talk about the process that you guys go through, because it is very unique. And this, I've got a picture here that I think I pulled off of your Facebook page. This is what you do to whiskey.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So the picture you've got up is a picture of a 550 gallon tank, stainless steel, and we dump aged whiskey. And then we'll add broken barrel staves. So those look like ex-bourbon barrels in that picture. And we're going to let those ex-bourbon barrels, French oak, sherry cask, they're all going to be submerged entirely into the tank. Every drop of that whiskey is going to end up through agitation and blending. We're going to make sure that every drop touches those staves and is pulling oak flavor, more caramel, more char, more woodiness, more of the sweet notes of the sherry, dark fruit. All that's going to be kind of expelled from the wood into the whiskey. And in doing that, we're going to have an amazing, complex, niche profile of whiskey that you're not going to get with any other brands. And we really are able, through this process, to develop a flavor that is truly our own.
Yeah.
And we call that process our oak bill.
Right.
And Nick, if you want to go ahead and explain the oak bill, because I sound like a horse, I'll let you. I'll let you jump in, man.
So the thing that I usually explain to people, I usually explain it in this manner, is that when Seth started thinking about this, I think that this was around the time where Angel's Envy had just sort of come on the scene. And as you know, they became famous for taking really good bourbon or whiskey and putting it in a rum cask or a sherry cask. And so Seth thought, if one barrel's good, three's probably better. But then the question became, how do you finish whiskey in multiple barrels? And you could put them in the barrels themselves, but then that becomes a scalability problem to blend all those barrels together at the end.
Right.
So the logical thing was to dump them in the large stainless steel tanks, to dump the whiskey barrels, and then take the French oak barrels, take the sherry cask and the ex-bourbon cask, break them into pieces with axes and sledgehammers, as you do, and take those staves and throw the whole stave into the whiskey.
Okay.
And so that allows the whiskey to come in contact with, like Seth said, all the staves at the exact same time.
So how did you come up with the idea of taking that approach to it?
Well, with our vodka brand, we put fruit in the vodka, literally, physically in the vodka. And so when you get accustomed to doing that, to submerging and infusing a spirit that way, it came only naturally to us to want to steep a physical ingredient into the liquid, pull the flavor off that way.
Yeah.
So we actually took that approach from day one. We never thought about doing this in a whole barrel. It never even crossed our mind. So when we started doing this, it was all about doing it with staves, doing it in a tank. We never wanted to do it in the bottle. With our vodka, we actually do the ingredients in the individual bottles, one bottle at a time. It did cross our mind to do individual woods, splinters of wood in each bottle, but we didn't want to get that call that somebody got, wood in their throat or were choking on it. So I didn't want to deal with that. So, we chose to do it on a large scale, filter the whiskey, get a clean pour. And there's a lot of versatility in our process because we get to go stave by stave by stave by stave until we get it right and have a profile and a timing and a cadence that we're happy with. Whereas barrel finishing, if you get a dud barrel or something, you got to buy a whole nother barrel and you got to dump all the whiskey out into the next. It's a whole process. So very expensive, very labor intensive, very time consuming. We have a lot more control with what we do as well.
Because there are whiskeys out on the market that will have multiple barrel finishes, but it is okay. It's in the new charred oak barrel, and then you take that bourbon and you put it in a sherry cask, and you take that and you put it in an Armagnac cask, and then you just kind of build. With this, you control. You're getting it all at the same time, essentially, and you're able to. While you may be able to get different flavors by the length of time that it would stay in those barrels consecutively, you can control that through your oak bill. How much, what percentage of this is a sherry cask, for example, with the small batch, right?
Yeah, we get down to the individual stave against another stave percentage. So when you see an oak bill, Nick, go ahead.
I don't know if it'll show up, but the oak bill is on the side of every bottle, where you can see the exact percentage of every type of wood that the whiskey's finished in. In this case, bourbon is finished in addition to the mash bill.
Yeah. So if we have 10 staves and it's 20%, 2 of those 10 staves are going to be French oak, or, similarly, if we're doing 100 staves, we have to count out every single one. And so the batches are pretty big now, and we are using hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of staves, thousands of pounds of wood. It is a labor of love for sure.
Yeah, because everybody wants to know what the mash bill is on the whiskey that they have, but you also do have the oak bill right underneath it. Like the mash bill on this is 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley, and the oak bill is 40% ex-bourbon barrels, 40% new French oak, and 20% sherry cask oak. So I love that. But one of the things that I really respect about your brand is the transparency of it. If you go to your website, you look at About Broken Barrel, the first line of text after Risk Takers Barrel Breakers says Broken Barrel whiskey is distilled and sourced from the historic Owensboro Distilling Company. It's right out there that you're sourcing this and where you're sourcing it from. And I really respect that, because there are a lot of people out there that are trying to play a game and either we're not going to tell you where it's sourced, or we're not going to tell you if it's sourced, but you guys take a very upfront approach to it.
Yeah, we're not embarrassed about where we get the whiskey from. The liquid is fantastic. It's so good. And we recognized that when we were tasting it at a very young age. I mean, we started with 6 and 9 month old barrels from this company in 2016 and 17. I mean, sorry, they started distilling in 16. we didn't get our hands on any of it till 17. And at the time, it was only 6 to 9 months old.
Right.
It was a late 16 distillate. So with that in mind, we grew with that company, and we were able to basically age up the whiskey to a point where we got to 2021 and we were like, look, we need to rebrand ourselves and separate ourselves and be an independent whiskey brand within a portfolio of spirits companies and spirits brands. So no, there's no games. We sourced some MGP on certain projects. I've sourced from California on certain projects. I'm trying to source from Georgia this year for certain projects. So every single barrel, every limited edition, every blend that is from multiple different distilleries and or states. There's a lot of different things happening within each bottle. It's super important to look up the details on each product, because there's full on press release and a full on multi-paragraph write up on every release we do, and there's two sitting above my head right over there. That these products are wildly different in oak and in liquid, from the one next to it on the right, the one next to it on the left. They change constantly.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to bring out about that, when you kind of started answering it with that you source from different places, is that part of the growth strategy, is to look for unique opportunities to source from other distilleries, craft distilleries, and things of that nature?
We haven't done too much craft. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
I was going to try to save his voice on this one because I can answer this. So for our core whiskeys, Kevin, most everything is from Owensboro. It's from Green River in Owensboro on that. But for our limited editions, Seth does look to come up with extremely unique combinations of whiskey and staves. So I think the last time we saw you, we had, for example, our Honey Smoke Reserva, which is a blend of rye whiskey, straight rye whiskey from Kentucky, light whiskey from Kentucky, finished in Sotol and honey barrels. And he specifically wanted the light, as an example, he specifically wanted the light whiskey, to combine with those Sotol staves and honey barrel staves. So yeah, to answer your question, that is part of a growth strategy. It is part of our limited edition strategy to find the most unique barrels and the most unique whiskeys we can. And hopefully we, like to be the first to do it. Our Black Herte that you were able to try, which is one of our more recent limited time offers. Nobody's done that. It's whiskey finished in coffee liqueur barrels and blood orange coffee liqueur barrels. And to our knowledge, we're the first in industry to do that. So we love being unique like that and being sort of first in class to throw something out there and try new things.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is innovative and very well deserving of the American Whiskey award that you got. So let's talk a little bit about this small batch, and
I need more.
That'll help your throat.
Or not.
One of the things that strikes me about this is there are some uncommon tasting notes that you're able to get out of this. I mean, I've had Green River bourbon before, and I think it's fantastic. And I've had whiskeys that are finished in French oak or sherry casks. But there's some things that you get out of this, or at least that I do, and I may be crazy, but like I get a lemon cookie note on the nose of this that I don't necessarily get on a regular basis from when I'm drinking whiskey. And there's a little bit of that red wine sherry on the nose, a little bit of maybe a little bit of caramel, but not overwhelming.
Not your standard amount, no. the caramel starts to really take second seat. There's a great sweetness. There's great vanilla notes. Lemon cookie. That's a new one. I've never heard that. I don't know if you're getting that, Nick.
When Kevin said it, and I noticed it again, yeah, no, I mean, I probably built my palate a little bit, but I'm definitely getting it a little bit now that you mentioned it.
Well, we do on our show from time to time, and my Whiskey Den, a companion show to ours. We do what we call Fat Guy Tasting Notes, where we find some of the more decadent food comparisons in the whiskeys that we drink. But on the palate, there's an herbal pine note that's there, very fresh, a little apple, a little cinnamon. It's very, very good. And then on the finish, there's it's like cream soda, sherry, and a little oak.
These are definitely some new notes. I am getting a lot of notes that I have not heard. Cream soda is new. I've not heard that on this product, or really any of our products. And that could just be your more advanced definition of vanilla, which I know is definitely a note in the cream soda. It's kind of like marshmallow or marzipan or one of those, creamier, softer, white powdered sugar flavor type notes.
There's, I mean, I guess you could say that it's a vanilla cream, but there's almost an carbonation or effervescence to it, and that's where I came up with the cream soda. So
I think for me, the French oak really plays a big hand, and it's it's big and it's bold, and it creates those it really rounds off the edges, and I think that sherry, it really just adds a touch of sweetness to it, and it gives it a little. You can smell it, you can taste it on the finish, and it certainly it certainly makes itself known.
Yeah, because sherry can be overwhelming if it's left especially if it's a wet sherry cask for a period of time. And quite honestly, I think people use that to cover up bad whiskey. But this is very well done in that the sherry is there. It has its influence, but it doesn't overwhelm the whiskey itself, and it all just really plays well together.
If I remember correctly, that's why Seth put it down to 20% of the oak bill, just so that it was there and it had a note, but it wasn't the star player. It wasn't distracting from anything.
Yeah. I have a little bourbon group that I've had for maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And at a recent meeting, I tried to create a flight for each of the guys that was going to be there, a blind flight for each of them, based upon the things that I know about their palates and what they like, what they don't like. And one of the guys was a big fan of makers. So I took 2 different maker's marks and this small batch, put it in a flight together, thinking, okay, you got some stave finish stuff going on. And he preferred this over the makers. So I think that speaks highly of what you guys do. Because makers is pretty well-regarded brand in the industry.
Yeah,
I mean it's a great example of it's a solid, heavily wheated bourbon. It's I think it's great. Can't say anything bad about it.
Yep. So let's before we move on to the next bottle, I want you guys to be sure to tell us where people can buy your whiskey, where they can follow you on social media, all that good stuff.
Pointing at you, Nick.
Yeah, I can't see. So you can follow us on Instagram at Broken Barrel on Instagram. That's probably the best way to stay up to date with any kind of new LTOs, what we're doing, what's happening at the Stave House. Anytime we're batching or doing anything interesting, it's going to be our Instagram feed at Broken Barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we have YouTube as well. I think Seth and I would both admit that that's not as popular as it once was. So definitely Instagram, and then brokenbarrelwhiskey.com, where we have a shop. You can buy all the bottles that we're going to talk about tonight, including all of our LTOs that we don't have with us tonight, are available at brokenbarrelwhiskey.com, including any swag like hats and shirts and things like that.
Yeah. And I believe that you also have a whiskey club. Is that right?
We do, yes.
I just saw that today when I was looking at your website. So that will be something that I'll be jumping on board with later tonight. Tell us about how that works.
It is either quarterly or semi-annual option. So there's either 4 bottles or 8 bottles. Mm-hmm. And we are in the process of releasing our first quarter, which is going to be an American whiskey. It's actually a new label we've never released before. And it's kind of like our Rare Americana, which we've released in the past, except this one's going to be a little more personalized to the members of the club and also to future retailers that are going to be able to buy this product. So a really, really cool option that we're doing in 2024. They're cask strength, they're single barrel. It's a really good release. And then we have our collaboration collection coming out in the black bottles in second quarter. That'll be part of that release. And that one, all I'll say is it has a 2-year finish. A 2-year finish.
2-year finish. Wow.
As of today, actually, it was 2 years, but we're not bottling it for another month or two.
Okay. So that'll be on the second quarter, right? Yeah. Okay.
Second quarter will be the 2-year finished collaboration collection. Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we'll remind everybody again as we get to the end of the show how to follow these guys and how to get involved with their whiskey club and how to buy bottles directly from them. I know that from a retail standpoint, Nick, how many states are you guys in now?
36 states, I believe.
Well, that's great.
And we've got a pretty solid distribution network that we've been working for several years to build. So there's very few places that we're not accessible.
Yeah. So let's dig in to this second bottle. This is Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished with stout beer staves. And the oak bill is 80% ex Imperial Stout and 20% ex Bourbon Cask. And the mash bill is the 70-21-9 from Green River, I suppose. So while we're...
I love that you have this bottle. I love it. I hadn't seen this bottle in a while, and I've got a few unopened ones here, but I don't want to open them up right now. And then I was with Nick in Kentucky, and he brought a few with him. So we had the pleasure of drinking these bottles, I think this time last week, right, Nick?
2 weeks ago, I think we were with you guys.
2 weeks ago.
It may have been
we were
two and a half, something like that. Yeah.
Poor Seth has been back and forth from LA to Kentucky, then LA to Kentucky, and LA to Kentucky. So I'm not even sure he knows what time zone he's in right now.
While we're sipping this, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit of music with you guys too. And Nick, I'll start with you. Do you remember the first concert you ever went to?
I do. It was Ringo Starr and his all-star band.
Holy cow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was like 1988 or 89, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a kid. I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
That is very cool. I like that one.
Seth's laughing, shaking his head.
Yeah.
Making me feel young.
Yeah.
Well, we can still see Ringo Starr and his all-star band. I think they still still do so.
They do. They don't tour that much, but I think they still do play from time to time. Whoever's might be in the all-star band at that particular moment.
There you
Seth,
go.
how about you? What was your first concert?
It was Lincoln Park in Cypress Hill.
Okay, so now we're getting an idea about
The
the
age
era
difference
that you
between
grew up in.
myself and Nick, yeah. No, it was their first album, which had come out 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. I must have been 11 or 12, and we got to go with my friend's older sister. Yeah, that's about right. So it was a while ago. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you remember where you saw him?
Long Beach, I think.
Okay,
Somewhere in Long Beach.
yeah. Now, do you remember your first album, Seth? First album that you ever bought?
Oh. No, but I have a good story about one of my early albums. I remember when we could burn CDs. We would burn CDs, and my older brother's friend had a CD burner, and he burned me a copy of Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
And my dad heard me listening to it on one of these portable CD boombox, and he heard all the F this, F that, fuck this. And he took the CD and he sits there and he's trying to break it, but the thing has like a glue on it. So my dad couldn't like snap the disc in half. So he ends up getting out the scissors and like shearing the thing in half and then throwing it on the floor. And I go, all right, well, I'll just get him to burn me another one. So he just burned me another one. I had it, and I knew you put that on because we didn't write what it was. You used to write it with the Sharpie, right?
Right.
So we didn't write out what it was. We would just leave it blank, and we knew the blank one was the one my dad would not let us listen to. And so we had it in our Walkman. We would like put it on our ears. But yeah, that was one of my first album. Might have been back in the day. They had those TV commercials.
Yes.
For they would literally sell albums via TV ads.
Yeah.
And one of them was Pure Funk. And I had gotten a copy of Pure Funk. And I still remember what was on that album.
Yeah.
Pure Funk.
Yeah. Back in my day, it was KTEL albums where you'd have, various artists on there, Elton John and Tin Lizzy and, just whoever had the hits of the moment, they would put them all together on an album and brand it with something ridiculous. But you got to try a lot of different artists, a lot of different music. So it's same kind of concept. Nick, how about you? What was your first album?
I remember it vividly because I cut a lot of grass to save up enough money to buy it, and it was a CD. It was 1993, I think, and it was the Magical Mystery Tour.
Oh wow! So you're in '93. You're buying an album that came out in what
1960? Yeah, 66 or 67.
Yeah. That's awesome. So then I'm supposing you're a pretty big Beatles fan then.
Huge Beatles fan.
Is Magical Mystery Tour, is that your favorite Beatles album or
no? Sgt. Pepper is probably my favorite Beatles album.
Yeah.
It's up there with Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. I don't know that you would have had Magical Mystery Tour without Pet Sounds, but I think they're arguably the two most influential albums in rock and roll history.
They're definitely up there.
I'm probably on an island there with Beatles.
Probably
it wouldn't seem it, but I am definitely a Beatles fan. I am definitely a Beatles fan, and my favorite album is Revolver still. I don't think anyone would agree with me on that, but I love that album.
I love that album too. Yep.
It was so
the Beatles
fun.
had a run just from word go, but you look at Revolver and Rubber Soul and Magical Mystery Tour and that run that they had there was, you're not going to beat it. But there's a lot to really go back and dig into for people that were cutting grass, almost 30 years after those albums came out in order to go out and buy them.
Well, when we still bought albums.
Yes.
When we still, yeah.
Yeah, well,
I don't even own a CD anymore. I don't even have a CD player.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, I don't either. Well, I do have a CD player, but there aren't that many CDs out there anymore. A lot of local bands, regional bands will do CDs just because it's cheaper to do than an album or vinyl.
Kevin, what was your first album?
My first album was a K-Tel album. It was called Right On, and I've got it over here in the stacks somewhere. But it was, I was probably 8-9 years old, and it was like I said, had Elton John on there, and probably Captain and Tennille, and just stuff that now I'm showing my age. But yeah, that kind of thing. But
I love that.
My first concert was better. My first concert was Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I feel much better about that than I do my first album.
I did see Linkin Park though, Seth, by the way. I saw Linkin Park at the Warped Tour in 2014.
I've never seen him since, and obviously their lead singer died and all that jazz. But yeah, I know they were. I saw Cypress Hill open up a few more times for other bands I went to go see. So by default, I've seen Cypress Hill more than once or twice, but never bought a Cypress Hill concert ticket. They were always just there.
That's a great way to go to a show.
You know what? They if you like to smoke weed, they are great. They are all about that.
Yep. As are a lot of artists of that era. We'll get into some more music stuff in a second, but I want to talk about this stout barrel stave finished bourbon. Seth, you were really excited when I said this was one of the ones we're going to be tasting tonight. What excites you so much about this?
We haven't made it in 2 years, and it is such a great combination of things. Imperial stout, bourbon whiskey, they go together.
Yep.
Peanut butter and jelly, man. They're like the best, one of the best combinations of barrel and bourbon possible.
This is it. Just the first thing that jumps out at me about the differences between this and the small batch is this is much thicker. There's the consistency of this is it really coats your palate really well, and it's chocolate and I get a roasted hazelnut on it too, and it's a lot of fun to drink.
It's definitely got the cacao note for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I like this because I don't find a lot of whiskeys that are finished in imperial stout. And Seth, can we say where the imperial stout barrels are from?
If you hold up that bottle and you turn it to the left, I can tell you.
Okay.
And turn it to the left.
Yep. 2022. That might have been a Firestone Walker Parabola beer finish. I can't remember. We did Tabula Rasa from Second Chance. We did something from Belching Beaver. We worked with those guys in California. We worked with there was a couple others. I apologize for forgetting them, but
that brings out a point in what you do and the approach that you take to it. you're having to try lots of different other things that are barrel aged to select what you want to get staves from, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right. You're not calling a barrel broker saying, "Hey, send me some sherry casks." I mean, you're being particular about it. You're being particular about the uh, the beer or the stout barrels that you get.
Yeah, and for the most part, we have been pretty particular. We have at times used barrel brokers for a specific type of barrel that was either requested of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we do take requests. If a group wants a single barrel, they can call up and say, I want to do a bourbon, but I want to finish it in honey and mezcal barrels. I don't have mezcal distilleries on speed dial, so I've got to go to a broker and find that.
Right.
If I want that order, if I want that business. I do call the broker and ask, what was the barrel before? What distillery is it coming from? We do ask a lot of questions before we buy anything, but we definitely don't. We don't just shoot from the hip all the time and go randomly. We're very particular when we can be.
Sure.
So I know where my Sotol barrels came from. Honey Smoke. I called with I know the owner of the distillery and the brand that we did the coffee staves from. I found him. So we usually do it that way.
Yeah. So I'll get back to some more on the whiskey side in just a second, but let's talk a little bit more about music. Does music have an influence on you guys from a whiskey standpoint?
I mean, Nick, it's probably a good time to put on there that we've got this new thing coming out called the Sound Bill, and we're just going to play speakers at our whiskey until the whiskey starts dancing along.
In fact, Seth and I were inspired by the Super Bowl ad, and we're going to start a boy band called the Whisk Kings.
The Whisk Kings, yeah.
We're going to start. Yeah, we're going to be the Whisk Kings.
Okay.
And sponsored by Broken Barrel Whiskey Company.
Obviously, I'm the singer. With this beautiful voice, kidding me? Who wouldn't want to hear me sing?
Obviously.
Let alone hear me talk. Oh man.
I think it does. We were with Kevin. We were with American Whiskey Magazine last week, and Maggie Kimbrell, one of their main reporters.
Yeah, she's great.
Maggie Kimbrell, and I have this recorded, and I think we're going to release it at some point on one of our social media feeds. But Maggie said she was kind of talking about when she was first introduced to Broken Barrel, and she said, "Wait a minute, so you're telling me these guys are taking axes and sledgehammers and breaking the barrels apart, taking the staves and throwing this?" And Maggie says, "That's punk rock as fuck." And I thought, I loved hearing that, because we like to think that, to answer your question in a long-winded way about, does music have an influence? Maybe a little bit, because I think that's kind of the world we tend to live in is the non-mainstream sort of, maybe little subculture, maybe a little Ramones, maybe a little Sex Pistols, we're still in the genre, but we're on the edge of the genre, not necessarily going along with what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. I like that. I like that a lot. And I talk with distillers sometimes, and say, okay, well, if you have this playlist or this album, what does that need to taste like in a whiskey? And they can conjure up some really cool things. You guys met Alan Bishop when you guys were in town last time, and he does that quite a bit. A lot of times the whiskeys that he makes are inspired by certain music that he's listening to at the time. And I think as distillers, especially if you're a craft distiller on a pot still, whatever's going on with you mood wise, emotion wise, it's going to affect the way you distill. And I could definitely see how it could affect when you're tasting the product as it matures and ages with these staves, that could whatever's going on with you from a mood standpoint, an emotional standpoint, which is definitely affected by music, could affect how you interpret the things that you're drinking. I don't think it's that far-fetched. It may be a little far-fetched.
I don't think it's far. I don't think it's far-fetched at all.
Your experience with the whiskey is always infected by the mood you're in when you're drinking.
Yeah. And I think that
leave it at that.
We all have experiences where we've been celebrating something and we've had a certain whiskey with that, and we're always going to have an association with that whiskey of a good time, or the opposite, where we've had something where it was, where there was a tough time, loved one passed away or something, and that whiskey is going to be linked to that emotion and that experience. And to me, that makes whiskey very special. That sets it apart from just the ordinary. Anything that you guys listen to that you're a big fan of that you think is a little unusual or obscure? Maggie talked about how punk rock, what you do is. What you do is very unusual and unique. Is there anything that you listen to that kind of falls into that same descriptor?
I mean, I'm all over the board. I don't have a genre. I listen to some pretty wild stuff. I'll listen to stuff. I like listening to stuff I've never heard of just as much as I do stuff that I'm very familiar with. So I'm all over the board from one end of the spectrum to the other. And I think it's the same way with spirits. I'm very, very much a spirits enthusiast, not just a whiskey enthusiast. So depending on the mood, sometimes I want a tequila, just like sometimes I want to listen to, Linkin Park or, versus maybe U2, right? Like it's very mood influenced.
Yep.
I am the same way. I will switch from, reggae to jazz to Sinatra to Beatles to System of a Down and Disturbed and Linkin Park and all that, and I'll go Offspring and I'll go Jimmy Eat World, and it's all over the map. I play music for my kids. I'll if we're cooking or if we're having pizza, we'll put on Italian cooking music. If we're having a croissant, we'll put on French cafe music. I do love the world we're living in, where you can literally think of a genre and you just type it into Spotify, and there's multiple playlists for, samba lo-fi, like weird stuff never thought existed, and it does. And it's like, all right, well, we're having a tagine tonight for dinner. Let's put on Moroccan music, and we'll put on Moroccan, cafe, and we get some Arabic stuff going on. It's crazy. So I love that. I love the no borders when it comes to music in a Spotify world. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
One thing that I'm noticing here as I'm continuing to sip on this stout barrel stave whiskey, this is dangerous because you could because it's 115 proof, doesn't taste 115 proof, but I could see very easily just doing what Seth was talking about, picking something on Spotify, put Rush on Spotify, and just keep going through albums, and this bottle dwindles. Yeah, this is dangerous, which is a compliment, but still, you maybe should put a label on there. Caution. You'll finish this bottle before you realize it.
Pretty much.
Kevin, I think that's one of the number one things we are thankful enough to hear about our 115 Reserve Oak series is that, even though it's 115 proof at cask strength, it does not drink that way.
What has surprised you the most about the journey you've been on since you switched to whiskey in 2017?
Community around whiskey is amazing. It's not like anything else you'll experience in this or really any other industry. There's such camaraderie. There's such communal bonding between people and our love of barrel-aged spirits. There's so much to talk about. There's so much to share. And especially when you get outside of just bourbon, you get into scotch, you get into world malts and all that.
Yep.
There's so much to learn. There's so much to try. There's so much to talk about. It is really infinite. There's no limit.
Yeah. And what as I'm thinking about the process, I'm trying to imagine the process you go through, both in terms of thought process and actual physical process with it. I mean, you're choosing a mash bill, and then what's the age of that whiskey that you've sourced, and then what type of oak bill fits best with that whiskey of that age, and then how long do you age it with that oak bill, and then what proof do you put it at? I mean, there's an infinite number of possibilities that you guys bring into the equation. How do you pull all that together to focus on the product that you're going to release?
We look a lot at what's already been done, and we try to go the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a lot of Amburana, we're done with Amburana. We're not doing Amburana. That was the same thing for Mizunara probably a year or two before that.
Yep.
We are always on the hunt. Predominantly, we're talking about and thinking about oak.
Mm-hmm.
You could have the same base whiskey and do it 10 different, 20 different, 30, 40, 50 different ways just by changing the oak and the combination of that oak and just toggling the proof of that whiskey. You know, our same 70-21-9 bourbon at 92 proof with a wine finish is going to taste entirely different from that same whiskey at 115 proof with a rum finish.
Yeah.
So by the time you get into all that, you know, you could never touch a single separate mash bill and have hundreds of SKUs and different proofs, different finishes, and be producing a very wide array of whiskey that touches on different flavor notes and different profiles, different drinkability. It's wild. So the idea that we're playing predominantly with bourbon, rye, and American whiskey, just 3 categories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have between those and the oak we can finish them with, and the ratio of that oak, you know, 20% honey, 80% French oak is a very different oak bill than 80% honey, 10 or 20% French oak.
Yep.
Totally different whiskey, even if the proof and the mash bill were the same and the age.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
and there's so many other things you can get into as you step outside of you know, your core bourbon mash bill. You know, apple brandy, American single malt. There's just a ton of different options that you've got at your disposal. So Seth, now your title is Chief Creative Officer. Is that right?
That's what I came up with.
Okay. How do you rely solely on your palate to choose what direction to go, or do you bring input from other people, to someone to check you and say, Seth, you may like this, but this tastes like crap?
I'll bring it out and we'll all drink it together here. I've got a few people in the office that I trust. Mm-hmm. We all know our stuff here. So everyone in the office has a really good palate.
Yeah. How did you develop your palate?
Years and years of drinking.
Okay.
I think that's just one side. Seth's got something like 2,500 bottles, I think.
I drink a lot.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people that have lots of bottles. I have lots of bottles. That doesn't necessarily
Mine
mean I
are
have
all
a
open.
great palate.
Yeah,
Yeah, mine
mine
are
are all
too.
open, and I've been drinking them for 12 years. I've been imbibing, and I've been
Yeah.
to about 200 distilleries, and I've ran a podcast myself for 2 years, did
Yeah.
50 episodes, enjoyed it. So yeah, I do it for work, I do it for fun, I do it on the side, I do it,
Yeah.
when I'm at home. I've been tasting a lot of spirits for a long time,
Yeah.
and it's really
I
helped
think it's like in the
develop.
culinary arts,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like a chef. A chef doesn't start with a great palate. You taste, 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 and taste some more, and then you
Right.
associate with people who have better palates than you. I think it's the same for anybody in the whiskey industry. Certainly, Seth,
Yep.
has been very lucky to be associate with some pretty prestigious palates, in the industry. And then he, let's just be honest, he drinks a lot to the point where we worry about him. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke.
No, it really is it's an acute kind of process where you really spend time in different lanes and channels. And so when we're getting into brandy, or getting into tequila, or getting into mezcal, or getting into Bacanora or Icea or Sotol, and you're kind of tasting nuances between each individualized category of distillate. And so we've got a nice collection of wheat whiskey, of American single malt whiskey, Taiwanese, Indian, Irish. I've been to Ireland twice. Don't like Irish whiskey. Keep trying it. Not my thing. 9 out of 10 don't really land for me. So you develop that over trial and error. I think I tried 30 different Irish whiskeys in a day. And, you develop a palate, and you kind of come up with a profile, and you watch other people, what they're drinking, what they like. You listen. Yep. There's a lot of listening involved. We want to, or tend to, try and be dominant voices as producers, blenders, distillers, whatever. And a lot of it is actually do your job and then be quiet and listen. Yep. Listen to what people have to say. Listen, like, you're tasting this tonight. I'm going to remember, cream soda. I'm going to remember lemon cookie. Those are going to stay with me. And you listen to what people are saying about your products and your blends and your finishes. That's where you can really evolve and improve. And it's always a constant improvement. You're always improving. You're always tweaking. You're always we batch number everything because we want to do better every time. Mm-hmm. So it's important to us.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that it's got the year and it's got a batch number on it, because for the consumer, that says that it's something that's unique and special to you. But from your standpoint, you can track flavor drift, right? And you can track, hey, we really like this batch better than that batch. What did we do different that makes this one better?
Yeah. The batches have certainly stayed pretty mainstream. We haven't seen too much fluctuation or differentiation on the batches since the new packaging in 2021. The prior packages to that are very different, and they're very stratified. Batch 1, batch 3, batch 5, batch 7. You wouldn't even know it was the same brand. They're so different, and it's pretty cool. I mean, I enjoyed that, but certainly as you get bigger, as you do more streamlined sales, you do want to have some familiarity between batches. And certainly we are small batch, but we're growing, and so we want to have some continuity from batch to batch, especially with small batch, with our rye, with our Americana. Those are pretty lined up.
Yeah. Well, you've been at it a while, so you know what works and how to do it and how much time to keep the staves in the liquid, and so I'm sure you've got some processes kind of nailed down. But then there's also the punk rock aspect of doing something very, very different, which if you look at the other things you guys have going on, that's definitely there. I like that. I like the fact that you've got something that is like the small batch, that is core, that is consistent, but then you also you're experimenting with other stuff, and you're not afraid to try something different.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest compliments for us is when I see, Seth will do an experimental, he'll do an LTO, and like Mizunara, several years ago, before really anybody was doing anything with Mizunara, Seth had this idea to do a series called, it was like woods from around the world. It was called the Single Oak series, and one of the SKUs, one of the products was finished. It was a light whiskey. Excuse me, it was a light whiskey, right? Finished in Mizunara, and nobody was really doing Mizunara at the time, and now everybody's doing it. Yeah. And when I say everybody's doing it, I mean companies that we look up to and respect. Companies that we think, gosh, that we'd like to be like that someday. People that we really admire, and so I think that's a huge compliment. When several months go by, and then all these people that you look up to are now doing it as well. I think I've always thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, and I think that you've got you guys are craft in a lot of ways, because you're not trying to, you may be using Kentucky bourbon, but you're not trying to be Kentucky bourbon. You're not trying to say, hey, look at us, we're going to compete directly with Jim Beam and Wild Turkey. You're charting your own course, and that's what the most successful craft distillers do as well. And just getting out there on the cutting edge, people are going to follow you.
Well,
I just saw another Bardstown Bourbon Company doing a stave finish using Green River distillate. The game is on.
It is.
Okay, we have a head start. A lot of trial and error in the years behind us. So see how it goes.
Yeah, you got a head start on them, and
you just have a few more million than we do.
Yeah, but you can also adjust a lot quicker than they can too. So you guys are nimble, and you're smart, and you're doing good things.
I could stand up, go out back, and throw some staves in a blend right now. I don't think we have that ability.
No, they've got to go through 8 layers of corporate approval.
Yeah.
And so maybe
I gotta look up and be like, I gotta ask the boss, and I go, it's okay. They go.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, you guys have been great. I want to respect your time, and Seth, thank you for being a trooper and powering through.
Sorry about my voice, guys. I sound like a different person. I'm not myself.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and Nick, you as well. This was a lot of fun. I really respect what you guys are doing and the approach that you're taking to it, the transparency that you bring to your products as well. And
Kevin, we'll send you some more stuff, and we'll do this again. Maybe 6 months. We'll try again when I got a voice.
Well, I would love to do this again, and I'm definitely going to be tracking what you guys are into. And whenever you're in town, let me know. And if you ever need anything, you just got to say the word, and I'll be there to support you, because I really like what you're doing. It's very different, and it's a lot of fun. You're doing it well. You're doing it very, really well.
Thank you.
So before we sign off, Nick, you want to tell anybody where they can find you personally on social, or just tell what's going on with Broken Barrel?
I don't actually do social media really. I try to stay out of that. But I think what's going on with us is you can look forward to the LTOs that we talked about earlier coming online in a few months. And so that'll be exciting. We hope to do a pick with you guys with the Bourbon Brotherhood. That'll be exciting when we get a single barrel pick going with you guys. That'll probably be the next time we see you. My guess would be in Louisville, and so that'll be a fun time.
Yeah, and Instagram, Facebook, Broken Barrel Whiskey. Be sure to check out the website, brokenbarrelwhiskey.com. You can learn about all of their products. You can buy their products and they'll ship to you. You can get in their whiskey club. Really good stuff there. So be sure to check all that out. As for our show, watch us on YouTube. If you just want to listen, that's okay too. Maybe you're driving. You don't need to be watching YouTube while you're driving. Unless you got one of those fancy Elon Musk self-driving cars.
We all do it.
But you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platform as long as it's Apple, Spotify, or Google. Look us up on Facebook as well. We'll post all our shows there. We will talk with you about what we're drinking and what we're listening to while we're drinking it. And I can kind of see once the weather breaks a little bit here in Louisville, I'll be sitting on the back deck with some of this stout barrel stave finished, assuming it lasts that long, and probably listening to a little Rush. I think that sounds good. So, on behalf of Nick and Seth and Broken Barrel, myself, thank you guys for watching. And until next time, cheers, love, and free bird.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.